I do not like the playoff format in this league, so let's talk about it. So firstly, just to outline how the playoffs work currently. The top 8 teams will be matched up, 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7 etc. They will then play 2 games with an aggregate scoreline. The 4 winning teams move on to playoff weekend. On Saturday they play the semi-final elimination games. And then on Sunday is the playoff final match, along with a 3rd versus 4th game literally for no reason. So, I do want to start this with some positives, and what I like about the current format. I like that we get 8 teams in the playoffs, and I like that it is seeded 1 versus 8. It incentivizes teams through the league to get as high in the standings as possible, for an easier playoff matchup. I enjoy that we get playoff-specific jerseys for all teams. As a lover of jerseys, I like to see new ones. I also like that it creates a league-wide event. A coming together of all fans around the league. All hockey fans looking at one event. I think it's important to have an event like that, where GM meetings can take place, fans come together for different events. However, I do not think that it should be at the playoffs. I personally think we could change how the Challenge Cup event works, and perhaps make the Cup tournament a mid-season event for all teams. I might talk more about that idea in a future video. Okay, so now I have said what I like about the playoffs, we need to talk about what I dislike. For me, the main issue with the playoff format is it just does not create interest. The playoffs are only an absolute maximum of 4 games if you go to the finals. 3 games and a waste of time of a game if you're 3rd or 4th. And just 2 games for all the rest. It's hard to get too excited for the playoffs when they are between 2 and 4 games. It just seems like a bit of a wet fart at the end of the year, and it shouldn't be. So how can we fix that first point? Well, we need to make the playoffs longer. We also need to create rivalries. So to me, playoff series are essential. Either best of 3s, or preferably best of 5 game series. Imagine a 5-game series between 2 teams, the rivalry would be amazing, and we could finally see some line matching going on. Physical games and great hockey. We could start to see the best in coaching, with how best to deploy their team against their opponents for up to 5 games. So if my first issue is that the playoffs are currently not interesting or long enough. What's my second issue? Well, to me, having boring playoffs also hinders the regular season, because the playoffs are not interesting. Unless you're a fan of one of the top 2 or 3 teams competing for the league, the regular season starts to mean less and less. The excitement in our league is therefore front-loaded. As opposed to other leagues where it gets more interesting as you go. Because playoff seeding doesn't really matter. Once you are out of the race for the league title, it doesn't really matter too much where you end up. Let me give you an example this year. Take the Coventry Blaze. We have known that they are coming 5th in the league standings for months now. They are comfortably going to make the playoffs, but not compete for the league title. Does it really matter if they came 5th or 8th? Because the playoffs are not interesting, you don't get super invested in where you end up in the standings, and who you meet in the playoffs. But now imagine you were going to meet in round 1, for a 5-game series, in an exciting playoffs. Well, then the games the last few months would have been really exciting. Your team's performance would really matter, because you would be building towards playing in the playoffs. The Coventry Blaze could begin preparing to face the Devils in round 1. Danny Stewart could begin preparing his lines to match the Devils' style of hockey. There would be something to really get excited and interested in. Instead, we find many fans just winding down on the season. If you lose a couple of games at the end, or your team plays poorly, it doesn't really matter. The season is done. Okay, so let's workshop this, and talk about what this playoff format would do to this year. Looking at the current standings, Belfast would face Glasgow in round 1. A 5-game series. Now in 8 meetings so far this year, the Giants have taken all 8 wins. But in a 5-game series, it introduces new factors. Glasgow could make it really physical, trying to slow the Giants down, wear them down. Even in a lopsided series, it's still exciting. The Flames would face the Panthers in round 1. The Panthers have had a disaster season, so you would think the Flames would walk it. But the thing is, when you play a series-based playoff format, at the start of round 1, everything resets. It doesn't matter how bad they have been all year, all they have to do is get 3 wins in 5 games. Panthers fans who are down on the team now, could still get excited for something. The Steelers would face the Storm in round 1. Please give me 5 games with these 2 teams. Imagine how good this series would be. Natural rivals, facing down for 5 games. Big hits, physicality, amazing skill. I'm here for this. And the Devils would face the Blaze. In the 9 times they have faced each other this year, Blaze actually have the better record, of 5 wins to 4 losses. And get this, 4 of those games went to overtime. This series could be the most exciting hockey we have ever seen in this league. And this is why a good playoffs is so important. It gets us talking, and looking forward to something. We look back through the regular season, to see how well teams match up going into the playoffs. Now let's say all 4 of the higher seeded teams go through. In round 2 you are getting a 5-game series of the Flames versus Steelers, and the Devils versus the Giants, with the winners meeting in the playoff finals. It would be so exciting. And usually in the UK our sports are based around the regular seasons. But isn't this sport we love of ice hockey more of an American product at its root? We need the playoffs to be interesting and exciting. Another point to make, the teams will profit from having an extended playoffs, as they will make more money from playoff games and TV coverage. This would really incentivize lower teams to push all year to make the playoffs. And it would incentivize a good playoff performance for all teams. In addition, it would make the acquisition deadline more interesting, bringing in players specifically to face the teams you expect to meet in the playoffs. Now I do understand these changes come with their own challenges. How do you fit an extended playoffs in? That is certainly something to consider. For me personally, I don't mind if the Challenge Cup becomes a slightly shorter competition. I wouldn't mind seeing the preseason reduce. And if it absolutely needed to, I wouldn't mind sacrificing a few league games to make it work. It's something that needs some thought, but to me an exciting playoffs is more important than anything else. So that's my take. Sorry if I rambled a bit. I am super interested to hear your thoughts on this. Let's start a discussion in the comments. Do you agree with me? Would you prefer a different format altogether? What did I get right, and what did I get wrong? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching as always and take care.